How's it going, Star Seekers? Welcome back to the channel once more, and I hope you've all had a great Christmas and got to spend at least a little time with family. So today we're going to be taking a look at Double Dragon Neon, a game which first released way back in 2012 but has recently been ported to the Switch. Now, if you've never heard of the Double Dragon series of games, they basically feature your classic beat-em-up gameplay and follow the story of two beefcake brothers called Billy and Jimmy Lee. Throughout the series of games, these two have had to punch and kick their way to victory, stoving in the faces of numerous enemies, often whilst trying to rescue a woman called Marian. And Double Dragon Neon acts as a sort of reboot to the series, bringing back its classic beat-em-up gameplay whilst adding a few new features to spice things up. Now, the Switch has seen some pretty awesome beat-em-ups released recently, including Streets of Rage 4 and The Takeover. So let's crack on with this review and see how Double Dragon Neon stands up to these, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel where I publish new Nintendo Switch reviews and content every few days. So mission 1 of the game opens with a familiar sight. Here we see Marian taking a gut punch from some ginger fella with ankle bandanas before being kidnapped, and moments later the broskies appear and set off in pursuit of the thugs, and that's about as deep as the actual storyline gets. Though you can expect plenty of tongue-in-cheek humour from the game and ludicrous baddies such as the main one called Skullmageddon. Now, Double Dragon Neon can be played with 1 or 2 players, and although there's no online mode, the second player is able to jump in at any point and lend a hand. After playing through part of the game in single player mode, it definitely felt to me like it was primarily designed with 2-player mode in mind. Many encounters see you facing multiple enemies at once, meaning you've really got to focus on your positioning to avoid being overwhelmed by enemies. And some enemies, like these teleporting geisha girls, are a right pain in the ass, even with 2 players. So if you've played classic beat-em-ups such as Streets of Rage or Golden Axe before, you'll know what to expect with Double Dragon. The game is broken down into stages which you work your way through, beating up various baddies along the way, and they generally culminate in an end of stage boss fight. Now, combat in Double Dragon Neon is kept pretty simple. You're able to throw punches and kicks with a tap of an X and Y button, and you have various combos available to you, a list of which can be found in the options menu. You're also able to grab and throw enemies by tapping B, or if you're surrounded can grab multiple enemies and perform a double takedown, though I did find the hitboxes in the game were a bit temperamental, especially with the grab moves, and the game often refused to register my grabs. In terms of defensive manoeuvres, you've got a dash button which can be used to quickly reposition yourself, and a duck button which, if timed right, will dodge an attack, allowing you to counter it for double damage, though I personally never really used this much. As you work your way through levels, you'll also find an assortment of melee weapons to assault your enemies with, and these include things like standard knives, swords and baseball bats, and there's also a gun which enemies carry and shoot at you with, but for some reason our lads aren't fond of firearms and instead use the pistol to bludgeon enemies to death with. Now, in addition to your standard movesets and weapons, as you play through the game you'll begin to collect cassette tapes containing different songs, and these come in 2 different variants. The first of these are stance songs, which permanently improve your character's stats, these being attack, defense, HP and MP. You can only equip 1 song at once, and each song improves different stats by different amounts. The second type of tape, whose name I'm not even gonna try and pronounce, contains songs which grant you special abilities, which can be performed by tapping the R button. Each ability consumes a portion of your power bar seen below your health bar, and these include things like powerful spin kicks and knee drops, or launching fireballs or lightning at enemies. Abilities are best used when going up against larger enemies or getting you out of a pinch when surrounded by enemies, though they often felt very underpowered until you obtained a higher number of cassette tapes. So as you fight your way through levels, you'll encounter a bunch of different enemy types, each with their own movesets. These include your standard thugs and the aforementioned teleporting geisha girls, as well as big mutated meatheads and everybody's favourite, the jetpack enemy. While enemy variety is decent, you will encounter many of the same enemies throughout the game, albeit with a bit of a reskin from level to level. Now, as well as dropping weapons and pickups which restore your health or power, defeated enemies also drop currency, which can then be spent in an item shop to buy health and energy items, extra lives and additional tapes, and collecting multiple tapes of the same kind increases the damage of the abilities or the stat increase of stances. Now, to start with, tapes are limited to 10 upgrades, but this limit can be increased by visiting a tapesmith shop. though the hulking blacksmith here will need mithril to perform these upgrades, which is obtainable from end of stage bosses. When it comes to the bosses themselves, the developers have been quite creative and there's some decent variety to them, though as I've said before they're often very challenging and bosses have a lot of health, so taking them on your own is a bit of a slog. So as you progress through the game in pursuit of Marian's kidnappers, you'll traverse through a large variety of environments, from city streets and rooftops to graveyards and the high-tech interior of a pagoda, which following the game's ludicrous storyline turns into a rocket ship and blasts off into space. Stages themselves are generally well designed, often featuring multiple areas and stage features such as pits, spiked floors or my favourite, conveyor belts, and I really like the visual variety that each stage offered, though I did feel that some traps were overused and there are a couple of really annoying sections with these missile things that continually launch at you. Now the pagoda stage, which is only a couple of levels in, is where I really started to feel like the game was designed with 2 players in mind. Even on normal difficulty, this skeleton-like boss took a lifetime to kill on my own and I used up all of my extra lives, and the teleporting geisha girls, which I encountered in nearly every fight, saw me running back and forth across the screen trying to get in a few hits before they once again vanished. Luckily though, there's no time limit for stages, so at least I didn't have that to worry about. So after failing and having to restart the pagoda stage, I got a second player involved, and we had an easier time working through the rest of the game's stages, though it still wasn't a cakewalk. The game features a total of 10 stages, and you're able to freely travel between unlocked stages on a kind of world map, which does allow you to replay them to farm for extra tapes and currency for upgrades. And with the difficulty factor that I encountered, I feel like this was what the developers had in mind instead of you just playing through each level once to complete the game. One thing that I did find a little odd though was that you can only actually visit shops within stages, and only a few stages contain shops. Now in terms of replayability, your first playthrough will likely take around 3 to 4 hours if you're playing with a friend and don't get your ass kicked in every stage. Once you've beaten the game once, you can then replay any of the previous missions or start a new game on the harder dragon difficulty and then again on double dragon difficulty, both of which offer even more of a challenge but better loot. Though for me personally, normal difficulty was enough of a challenge and I won't be attempting anything harder anytime in the near future. So overall I thought Double Dragon Neon was a decent beat 'em up, though it does show its age a little when compared to the recently released Streets of Rage 4. Combat can feel a little clunky at times and hitboxes a little off, but it's still very playable and I like the customization options with the different tapes. Visually the game looks alright and runs well on the Switch, and I would say that the environments look better than the character models, whose movement animations do look a little bit robotic at times. Audio wise, you have some nice meaty hit sound effects when pummeling opponents and some decent ambient stage sounds, but it was the awesome metal and 80s inspired soundtrack which stood out to me, as I felt it set the tone nicely, giving you some right tunes to kick some ass to. Now I personally had a good time with Double Dragon Neon, and I'm sure plenty of people will do, but I'm not 100% sure fans of the original will take to it, mainly due to the inclusion of currency collecting which replaces your classic high score system, and the tapes and abilities mechanics which do mean the game deviates from the simple combat format found in the original games. I'll end this review by saying you shouldn't go into the game expecting an easy time because it's pretty damn hard, especially when playing alone, so you're best finding a buddy to team up with. So now we come to rating the game, where I give my own personal rating out of 5 stars, and I base this rating on the quality and quantity of a title's gameplay and whether I believe it to be value for money to potential buyers. When all's said and done and all things considered, I've decided to give Double Dragon Neon 3 out of 5 stars. Double Dragon Neon offers some simple but classic beat 'em up fun, and if you're looking for a cheaper alternative to Streets of Rage 4, it's definitely worth a look. You can get Double Dragon Neon from the US Switch eShop for $14.99, though it's not yet available on the UK eShop but should hopefully be releasing in the next few weeks. Alternatively, the game's also available on Steam. And that just about wraps up this review of Double Dragon Neon. Don't forget to give that like button a click if you enjoyed the review and it helped you out, and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to be notified of future Nintendo reviews that I publish every few days. For now though, I just want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care and game on.